Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Women Petpreneurs podcast with your host, Mary Oquendo. And my guest today is Jamie Buccheri. Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
So I always like to start these off with how you got involved in the pet industry. So let's start there.
So when I graduated high school, I really wanted to get into the veterinary industry. I wanted to either become a doctor or I wanted to become a vet tech. So I had a few months before I was able to start school for that. So I wanted to get my foot in the door and start some sort of animal training. And I found a little hole in the wall grooming school in Anaheim. And I once I started veterinary school, I was, well on my way in grooming school, and vet tech school was really expensive. So I needed a way to kind of supplement that income. So I started grooming out of my mom's garage at about 18, and it just blew up from there. And now I have 4 locations.
I'm always amazed at the number of people I interview. That's my dogs
That's okay.
who start off thinking, I want to be a vet and then become a groomer, because that's exactly how I started too. Because yeah, I wanted to be a vet too. I'm kind of glad at this stage of life that I didn't follow through on that. I don't think I have the temperament to do that. Um, Mostly because I don't think I could handle the euthanasia or losing a pet in surgery. I just don't think I'm cut out for that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so you started grooming out of your mom's garage.
Yes.
All right, so where did it go from there?
Um, well, in about 8 months, I got a letter from the city basically saying that I had 30 days to evacuate. So, um, at that point, I had some money saved up, and I purchased a salon that was right down the street. And yeah, it just kind of blew up from there. Um, we were averaging about 30 to 40 dogs a day there as of now. And then my second one, I had a groomer come up to me. She actually wanted to buy this grooming salon from an owner that was selling. And she asked me if I would come and just kind of look at the place and let her know what I thought. So I went down there and I completely fell in love with it. And the groomer ended up having a falling out with her. And I said, hey, do you mind if I kind of go after the offer? And she didn't mind at all. So that's how I got my second location. And then third and fourth were the same. I bought from an existing owner.
All right, so how much time was in between shop one and shop four?
So shop one and shop two was about 5 years. And then shop two to shop three was about 5 years. And then three and four were within 6 months of each other.
Okay, okay. All right. So do you like owning four shops?
I do. I do. I've tried to get out of the grooming industry here and there just because, we're moving towards licensing, and then, the whole thing with groomers moving out of commission to hourly and all those issues. I was like, you know what? I kind of want to get out of the pet grooming industry, but I just know how to do it so well that when something falls on my lap, I can't help but to take the opportunity.
Okay, so did you ever think you would own four places?
Never. I've always tried to get away from the grooming industry just because we're moving into licensing, and the whole thing with the groomers and 50% commission and all those issues, which is a whole nother topic. I've always tried to, kind of maybe get into another field in the animal industry. But every time an opportunity presents itself, I can't help myself but take it because I've gotten so good at what I do.
Okay, so what might be some of those other opportunities you are thinking about in the pet industry?
So I do make since the beginning of time, I've made all of my shampoo, my toothpaste, my colognes, like mostly, I would say about 80% of the products in the salon I made in-house. So that's another business, but I mean, that's a whole nother animal, getting into products and the space and the equipment that you need for that. So right now I'm keeping it slow by my salons being kind of my only clientele for that. But I mean, I've gone into like the boarding space, I've gone into like pet retail space, both like online wholesale, like storefront. So I feel like I've tried things here and there, but I always go back to grooming.
Okay. All right. Actually, I want to touch on your shampoos and stuff. All right. So, um, because I have several friends who do manufacture things, I know the trials and tribulations behind that. Okay. So, what made you want to do and create your own shampoos in the first place?
When I started in 2011, and for those of us who are around during that time, shampoo was terrible. I mean, there would always be one that was like, oh, this one smells good, but then it doesn't last, and then it doesn't degrease, and it was just, I don't know, it was a mess. And I've always been into natural stuff, so I've always made my own toothpaste, deodorant, stuff like that. So I wanted to come up with a product that worked really well, and that also, was natural and wasn't filled with chemical.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, you have, I'm assuming, with 4 locations, you have a lot of employees.
Yes, 28.
Wow. All right, because I'm going to tell you why I went mobile. I went mobile because I didn't want to shop because I didn't want employees. Okay, it just,
Don't blame you.
well, you know what? Because I worked corporate, the problem with corporate is a body is a body is a body is a body. At least where at the time that I was there, I couldn't get somebody fired who should have been fired. Who literally after I left, ended up killing 2 cats. And she should have been fired, but I mean, she was after that, you know, but but there was I didn't want employees, right? Because it just didn't seem like I had control, and I'm pretty sure at that time I thought I was going to be a terrible boss. Okay, but anyway, that's why I went mobile. So I didn't want employees. I have like zero knowledge of what it takes to have employees. So what is it like to have 4 locations and 28 employees?
um I would say for many, 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 many years, it's a struggle. Because you can maybe find one or two good people, but what about the rest of them? And then typically, if there's one bad egg, they can kind of make other people kind of join their little group. And I mean, that can happen across locations. So I mean, it's really just about eliminating the toxic people as quickly and as um morally, obviously, as well, at the same time, but while also constantly looking. So another thing I do is, even when I am fully staffed, I am always looking, because what if you're going to pass up that person that's like this once in a lifetime person that is great, just because you're not hiring now, but you may be hiring next week for all you know. So that's one thing I do, is I keep hiring no matter what, and I put people at different locations, because I'm really just looking for this very specific person. And it ends up not even being so much grooming quality, because we can always train that. It really ends up being like a certain type of personality. And once you gain traction with that personality, and you start to, when you have one bad egg, but the rest are good, the bad egg ends up turning good. So it's about making sure you have a really good balance of positive energy versus negative energy, I would say.
Oh, no, I agree with that. I had a friend who started to manage a grooming shop, and there was a great groomer there, but she was problematic. And she was afraid to fire her because she thought she would lose a lot of business, but she did. And it became a much nicer place to work. All the other groomers then started becoming happy to go to work. It became a pleasant environment.
Yes.
They became more productive. So her bottom line wasn't affected at all by just removing that one toxic person who was causing problems for everybody.
Yeah. That's a huge is a lot of us as business owners have fears of a lot of things, of terminating someone that needs to be terminated, of increasing our prices, of we have all these fears, and ultimately, like, if we just take that jump and do that, these decisions are going to ultimately like make everyone's lives easier.
So there's a lot of tough decisions a boss has to make. There's a lot of tough decisions everybody has to make, period, going from day to day. Okay. But when you first bought your very first shop, all right, tell me how you felt about, getting the letter from the city saying, oh, hey, you have an illegal business here. You need to stop doing that now. So, one of your neighbors ratted you out, right?
Yes. I mean, I was back then, I didn't have tough skin because I was very new. So every little thing like that I would lose sleep over it. It would affect me. But I mean, now you grow tough skin and you just learn that what is actually a big deal and what isn't. And even the things that are a big deal, there's a way to handle it. Sitting there and stressing out about that is not going to solve anything. And there's almost always a direct solution to the problem if you just kind of sit there and lay everything out. So,
What do you think is probably the best quality you have for being an owner of 4 locations and 28 employees?
I would say the way that I work with people, now some people might disagree with this tactic, but I feel like obviously staffing is number one. I cannot be at all those places at the same time. So I rely on my staff more than a single business owner. So I make sure that I figure out each person. Each person might just work slightly differently. Maybe this person needs to be pushed a little bit more. Maybe this person needs to be spoken to a certain way. This person needs to have this sort of initiative. So my guess, my biggest thing is, instead of being the type of owner that says, well, you're going to come here and you're going to do this and you're going to do it my way. And that's the bottom line. I kind of get to know each employee and cater to them, not overstepping any boundaries, obviously, but catering to them to a certain point where they appreciate it and they feel good about giving the work back. And I feel like that creates a system and a community that is unbreakable.
You know what? I like that. That's called managing people. All right. Back when I was managing a corporate grooming salon, I had several people working under me. Again, I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. Okay. But I had different, not grooming employees, because it was a corporate facility. I had other people in the grooming salon, but I had kid come in to do cleaning. Okay. I couldn't just say, hey, go clean this. He had to be managed in a certain way. My bathers had different I'm not gonna say mentalities, different personalities. Okay. So screaming at one person and you will do things my way might work with one person. It's not going to work with this other person. So yeah, it's learning how to manage the people so that they can be effective for you. I tell people they ought to, business owners should do a SWOT analysis of their employees, know what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and work with them. Why are you making the groomer who is terrible with clients? Clients walk all over them. Why are you making that person deal with them? Okay. Nothing good is coming out of that. All right. The groomer is stressed because they have to deal with the client. The client is walking all over this groomer. That's not good for business either. Whereas you just have the groomer or receptionist or whatever, but the person handling clients knows how to handle clients. That works.
Yeah,
That's so much better use of people's skills.
exactly. Yes.
All right. Or on the flip side, why would you have a groomer who's afraid of cats groom cats?
Yeah.
You know,
Might cause an injury that way.
you cause an injury. So knowing the talents and the personalities of your staff, that's a job in itself. You know, and for those business owners who can do that, I applaud you, because again, besides having flaky people because corporate body is a body, I just I didn't want to do that, right? I didn't want to manage people. So kudos and hats off to those of you who can do that. That is a skill. All right, for somebody who is thinking about, let's say they already have a location, and they're thinking about that second location, what advice would you give them?
I mean, I guess just make sure that you can completely uh, step out of that business and it is going to be fine. Um, I feel like that's a huge thing for a lot of us is we wear so many hats that if we were to step away to go work at another location for a little while, one, we would be on the phone all day long, or two, we would be worried about issues going on there. So that would be the first thing, is to solidify your team and make sure that you can leave for a couple weeks and be at just that new location and not have to worry about that at all. And then the second and final thing I would say is to make sure that all of your systems within that first location are solid, because you're opening another location where you're going to apply the same systems. So you want to make sure these ones are solid, because if you move them over to a new location and they're not, then you just have two dysfunctional businesses.
Okay, so when you say systems, define that, please.
So everything from the way that you're checking in the way that your staff is checking in your clients, do you have tickets? Is everything in the computer? Are you handwriting everything? Your inventory, your closing, like basically just everything there is to operate. There should be something written out that says this is how you do this. So all your staff knows there's one way to do this system, and that applies to everything. Does that make
Standard
sense?
standard operating procedure manual.
Yes.
It's why the big corporations, they have like a fancy name for them. It's like 9001 certified or some stupid name like that. But their operating manuals are tomes. Okay. They are just thousands. It's probably 9,000 certified because that's probably how many pages are in it,
Yeah, I think mine's about 48 pages, but I just started it 2 years ago. Every year it grows about 30 pages. So mine will be a brick soon.
Yeah, well, even still, 48 pages is still a lot, but yeah, an operating manual is meant to have like those details of day to day. And I call myself the queen of checklists. There isn't anything I do more than once that doesn't have a checklist that goes along with it.
Yes, that's what I always say. I always say if you're writing something down on a piece of paper or doing something that's not belonging to a system, that thing needs to have a system.
Yeah, I can remember a friend of mine when she got her first employees. She goes to me one day, she goes, I'm just going through shampoo like crazy. I don't understand it. All right. Until she started to monitor them, and she realized that they're using like 4 times the amount of shampoo. Okay. And she goes, I can't believe it. I have to get measuring cups and detail. I says, yeah, that's called the standard operating procedure manual. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
restaurants have to tell their employees how many times a tomato needs to be sliced. Like it needs to be that detailed in our industry, and a lot of us don't do that.
Yeah. No, 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 no. That's an argument I have here with my husband. I like thick sliced tomatoes. He likes them really, really thin slice. And I'm like, then you slice them. But yeah, things that particular. So she's got a set of measuring cups and she laminated the sheet, and for every shampoo and every conditioner or whatever spa product, she had the measuring cup attached to the container.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
I says, yeah, you're the boss.
Yeah.
This is what entails being the boss. And I don't know why you're not writing this down and creating a manual, and then you can, like, I don't know, offer that as a service to other business owners. I'm just saying, because sometimes we don't think about these things.
Yeah, it's very true. Grooming salon owners are very old school, and I feel like a lot of those things don't apply.
So, but they should apply.
They
All right.
should. They need to apply. Yes.
All right. Because like I said, I'm the queen of checklists, which will bring me to Should have like a drum roll. Commercial time. Okay. So talking about standard operating procedure manuals, emergency and disaster plan templates. Okay. If you have employees, OSHA requires that you have this in writing. You know, but it's one of those things that takes forever to do. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to think an emergency or disaster can actually happen. All right. But if I have hours and hours and hours of your time, I can give you exact examples of especially boarding facilities, because they usually have dogs in kennels and crates, maybe not in full view like they do in grooming shops. There was a boarding facility here in Washington, and they had a huge fire, and they got really lucky. None of the dogs died. And 9 months later, same facility, just a different location, had a fire in which there were deaths in it. So you would have thought that after the first fire that maybe, oh, maybe we need a plan. What are the chances of that happening twice, Jamie?
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
But you know what? Those stories we hear all the time, and a lot of times it is multiple places with multiple locations. To think that, oh, you know what, it happened to me already, won't happen again. And those are the same facilities that get hit, just at another location. So that's why I put together the template. It's plug and play. You just have to fill it out. It's all done for you. Okay. And you can get that book on my website, positiveed.com. Books are in the menu bar. So anyway, back to you. If you had to, looking back on your first business, going into your second business, okay? Now, looking back, what changes do you think that you have knowledge of now that you should have applied in between those two?
Kind of what I brought up, just really, like, I thought I had systems in place, but they definitely weren't like concrete, solid. So as I grew, I noticed those things more, and they were affecting more. And then it was more like, okay, now we have to fix this problem. So I guess if I would go back, I would definitely tighten up my systems a lot better to get ready for the growth in the future.
Okay. Now, is having 4 facilities sort of like having 4 dogs? But you know what? 1 is a lot of work. 2 is just a little bit more work. And then you don't even notice 3 and 4.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It's like having 4 children. um, it's a complete life shift. Like, you think, okay, I have 1, how would I ever manage 2? And then when you have 2, you're like, oh wow, 1 was kind of easy. So really, what I had wasn't manageable until I added something else. Yeah, so to speak.
Okay. So now tightening up those things for 2, was it an easier than transition going from 2 to 3?
No. So, I mean, in a way, I thought so going in, because once we got our systems down straight, then it's like, okay, we're just kind of adding, more bills on here and there, but we're kind of, everything's structured the same. We're just adding more. But at the same time, there's a lot more work with each and every salon that is added on. And I either take on a lot more work, or I have to hire another person in the back end. So that's another thing now that, I didn't have at 1 or 2. I didn't have a dedicated back end, accountant, someone who does paperwork and billing. I never needed to have that before. That would just be incorporated with the manager and then me. But now with 4 locations, like, now we need our own accountant. Now we need our own back end manager. Now we need someone who visits all the stores. So as you're growing, you're going to need more. I mean, it becomes more corporate the bigger you go, I would say.
Okay. So then, you know what, maybe you kind of understand the way corporate is. Of course, they're managing thousands and thousands and thousands of stores. It used to annoy me that the store manager would come in with the missive for the grooming department because something happened somewhere else. And now we all had to make changes. And when in reality, 90% of those changes weren't necessary. it was a problem with a particular employee with no common sense. Does that
Right.
make,
Right.
you know?
But that also they're also, like you said, they're hiring just bodies.
Yeah,
So if you're just hiring bodies, then you have to make your rules a lot more strict.
yeah,
If you're hiring with quality, then yes, of course, there's things that happen where now that became location wide where we're applying that. But for me, every time we've done that, the other locations are like, oh yeah, we totally get that. We understand that. Doing it for silly reasons, I feel like means you're not hiring quality staff.
yeah. So there were things that's like, oh yeah, that does kind of make sense. So I would always read it, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
but some of it was ridiculous. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing that in this store here. Um, but yeah, but then you know what, for the most part, with okay, you have managers at each of your locations, correct?
Yes.
How vital are those managers to the success of each of
Uh,
those locations?
extremely,
Okay.
extremely. It could not run without them.
Okay. All right. Who would you say is your best hire? Okay, let's do this way. What was your best hire when you had one location?
Oh. Um, I mean, when I had one location, the mentality back then was there was this girl that could groom literally an unlimited amount of dogs a day. She would stay there till 9 o'clock and groom 19 dogs because she wanted the tips for it. And at that point in time, with my mentality, a power groomer was my best employee.
Okay.
But
All right.
that would not be my best employee nowadays.
Okay. So now you got location two. What was your best hire?
I would say it had to be a mix of a power groomer, but also someone who can handle themselves in the front and was able to, get along with all of the employees. That's when the whole personality thing was important and started to weigh in.
Okay. Now you have three locations. What was your best hire?
So now when I got my third location, I absolutely hit the jackpot. I found a master groomer who was looking to kind of not groom so much anymore, but just manage. And we kind of found each other at the perfect time. And I would say she completely changed my life from third and fourth location in so many ways.
Okay. Now you're at your fourth location. What was your best hire for the fourth location?
I would say still her, but overall now a top hire for us would be someone who has the whole package. So I'm not necessarily looking for a power groomer anymore. I'm just looking for a minimum, but you also need to be able to handle yourself in the front, and you have to be well-rounded,
Okay.
basically.
All right. So going forward, do you think there'll be location five and six?
Probably.
All right.
It just comes like a magnet. Once you start doing it, it just happens everywhere.
All right. So your four locations right now, how far apart are they from each other?
The farthest two are 50 miles. So they're all up the 15 freeway in Southern California.
Okay. All right. So now going forward, if you think there's going to be five and six, so you're in California, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about the possibility of five or six. Where do you want them to be? Where would you want them to be?
So right now for seeing 5 and 6 in the future, I'm really tightening down on what I have now. As far as we're going over all of our budgeting again and cutting, we're going through all of our systems, we're revamping. So that way, if there is 4 and 5, we are solid and we are ready to go. So,
Okay, okay. So two locations are the furthest apart are 50 miles apart, so that's an hour's drive.
right.
Well, I don't know, California,
Yeah, maybe maybe an hour and a half. Yeah.
maybe an hour and a half. Okay. Um, but that's still within a reasonable drive.
Right.
Okay. What are some of the things that you have come across having that many locations?
Emergencies.
All right, I'll give you an example. All right. So back when I worked corporate, I was in the Brookfield, Connecticut store. That was my main store. But I still went like once a week down to the Norwalk store because there was a better groomer there. And I would work there one day a week, so I would get better training. And I'm going to say that that is probably one of the best things I loved about being corporate. Okay. Was the access to so many other stores and the people that were in those stores. So anyway, we get down and Beth and I are waiting in the parking lot with, because the store manager hasn't showed up yet. Or in that case, it was assistant manager. Didn't show up for work. And then our clients come, and now we're sitting in the car with 4 Bichons. Okay. Assistant store manager is there, it's not there yet. So this is back in the day when, you know what, cell phones were not a thing, people. Okay. One of us had to get out of the car, go across the street to the gas station over there, to the payphone, so we could call the store manager to say, hey, this guy's not showing up here. He's already 15 minutes late. And now we're sitting in a car with 4 dogs. Okay. Now this guy lived in the same area where I lived in. He was in Brookfield. I lived in Danbury. So I know the drive from Danbury to the Norwalk store was about 45 minutes. That guy was there in 15 minutes. I don't know how many, there must not have been a single police officer on Route 7, those in the area who know the route, from Route 7, from Danbury down to, from actually starting in Brookfield down to Norwalk. He made it there. He was there 15 minutes.
Wow.
I'm not sure I got across the street back to the car in 15 minutes.
That's so funny.
Okay.
Definitely not a Southern California thing.
All right. So, but that was the store manager's responsibility. But the assistant just up and quit. Didn't tell anybody. Okay. Just didn't show up for work. So now it was the store manager's responsibility because we're just groomers. Even though Beth was the grooming manager, she did not have keys to the store, nor did she have the code to the alarm. So it wouldn't have mattered if she did have keys to the store.
Right.
So when something happens, all right, what would be for somebody who has like 4 stores and is thinking, oh, that's crazy, or someone's thinking, yeah, that's what I want. I want 4 stores. What might be some of the things that you're like, oh crap, I gotta deal with this.
Well, I mean, that's really, I feel like your job, especially growing, because if you're not eliminating these emergencies as much as you can, and you have multiple salons, you cannot be at all those places at one time. So for instance, something like that, every person that works at the salon actually has a key with their own different alarm code. So if an opener didn't open, we would call the next person that lives closest and be like, hey, can you come open the salon for us? Or whoever arrived would have a key as well. So as emergencies like that happen, we basically are like, okay, that's not going to happen anymore. How do we figure out a way?
Okay.
So I mean, I guess the biggest thing that could happen now as far as an emergency would be like a dog getting hurt. But it's very black and white what to do in all of those situations in our handbook, which everybody's well versed in. And I mean, at worst comes to worst, an owner comes and grabs the dog and brings them to the vet if something, an emergency like that happens. But, other than that, it's pretty much taken care of by everybody.
Okay. So you bring up a point that, you know what, problem happens. How do we deal with it going forward? I also think that is a real skill as far as a business owner needs. Problems are going to happen. They are. All right. Now, how do you prevent that from going forward? All right. Corporate had no plan for that going forward. All right. Someone didn't show up. It was still either the only people who had keys and codes were assistant managers and store managers. That's it.
Yeah. It's not very smart.
But you know what? I mean, again, with that also on the flip side, with that volume of people who work for them,
That's
you
true.
know, giving out keys to everybody, but I think more than 3 people need keys to the store.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And everyone is going to have a different answer to that question, but it's really just about taking on the problems that you're having and making sure that that doesn't happen in the future and setting systems for that.
Yeah. And I just want to say that sometimes you just don't know what problems are until they happen. You can't possibly plan for every problem that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you're
Very
going to
true.
plan for all of them and that's going to be great and those are not going to happen. But then there's going to be the other thing that happens, the thing you didn't plan for, you know? When I first launched well, not first, when I launched Positive Ed for the third time, okay, and it was all new technology, I was so glad that the membership numbers were a little on the low side because boy, there was a lot of tech problems. You know, but you know what? We fixed all of them and learned from them. Okay, well, we know now what to do next time. But you know, technology is technology, and then things are updated, and then the technology changes, and then something breaks, and then you got to deal with that too. But you become an old hat at, it's just a tech issue. Let me see what the problem is, as opposed to the meltdown and the crying over the initial problem. Okay. So, is there crying in being a business owner?
No, no, there's not.
Business owners don't
Not
cry.
at this point. Not at this point. Definitely, it's the thick skin comes into play.
Okay, very cool. All right, so where would you like to see your business in like 5 years from now? Okay.
I mean, I'm sure it's hard everywhere, but Southern California is just getting insane. Like our bills have probably doubled in the past year and a half. So really just kind of I really just want to be able to adjust with the times, further tighten my budgets and my systems, and really just get everything clean. And that could be for the purpose of adding 5 and 6, or that, just to kind of keep everything organized and straight. I just want to be tighter, if that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. I think when COVID hit a couple years back, and there was a lot in my business that was wasteful. I think wasteful, you know. But you know, money's rolling in, you don't pay attention to it. You
Yeah.
know, then COVID came in, and then you know what? Money wasn't rolling in as good. So I had to take a really good look at some of the stuff I didn't need. Stuff was fun. Yeah, that's new tech. Let me try that. All right. So I think there's lessons in everything, and being as I don't want to use the word frugal because I think frugal is a poor word for it. All right. I think it is about smart about your choices. All right. Is saving money here going to cost me more money down there? Or is this wasteful? Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Of course, yes. And when I say budget cutting, I don't just mean cut, because business owners of all sorts do that. They want to cut, they want to lay off staff, which could affect their business. They want to buy less quality products. You don't want to cut any of that stuff. You really just need to see what is operational and what is not. And if anything is going to affect your quality, that is not something you want to cut.
Good. Yeah. Because back when I went mobile, all right, so I went mobile in 2002. And when I realized product was not where I wanted to cut costs, okay? The difference between, at the time, let's go 2002 prices, okay? The difference between a gallon of shampoo that was costing me $100 and a gallon of shampoo that was costing me $20. My bottom line was the difference between spending 10 cents, spending 25 cents per pet. That was a nominal cost per pet to go from $100 to $20 and vice versa. Going from a $20 shampoo to a $100 shampoo was ending up like my bottom line was like such a nominal 15-cent cost. Why would I cut money there?
Right.
You
Exactly.
know, for me, cutting money meant scheduling better, you
Yeah.
know, not wasting fuel going from one end of the county to the other, rather than doing like neighborhoods and areas. That was a much better way to tighten up a budget for mobile.
Yes, yeah, there's definitely not a one answer solution as far as budgeting. You really just have to rip everything apart and see what you're paying out if that's actually giving you a return. And just yeah, kind of delegating it that way.
Yeah, so now my friend whose employees were using 4 times the amount on that $100 shampoo, yeah, they could
That's
tighten
a
up
different
there,
yeah.
you know? But yeah, other than that, yeah. So, um, what 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 advice do you have for people who are, going forward? If you have like, let's do two different types of advice, all right? What is personal advice that you would give somebody in the pet industry? Just
Personal.
random advice.
Okay, so I like to give this advice out. We as business owners don't see ourselves as athletes, but we actually are. And for us to not be constantly training our body, our mind, and challenging ourselves, and when I say that, I mean at least eating food of nutritional value, getting yourself out and active somehow, taking care of yourself in that way will benefit you and your business and everybody around you so much. And because if you get older and you can't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of any of these other things. So start with yourself and take care of yourself would be personal advice.
I like that. And I think comparing us to athletes, I think that's a workshop right there. I'm going to go mention that to a friend of mine. You ought to do a workshop comparing us to athletes and taking care of ourselves, because really that's very insightful. That's great. Now, so business advice. All right. What would you say to anyone, and just pick a stage in a pet professional's career? It doesn't have to be business owner. Might be for when you started out working out of that garage and then your neighbor ratted you out.
Again, it's going to go back to the fear thing. A lot of us have reservations and fears about either, going from working a 9 to 5 to owning our own salon, or maybe from 1 to 2, or from mobile to salon. Whatever stage that you're at, there's going to be so many decisions that, you're going to initially have fear about. But if you can look at everything on paper and it makes sense and you have a solid plan, you need to throw those fears out the window. And that even trickles down to down the line. If you're not making enough money and you need to increase your prices and you're scared about doing that, if you need to let that employee go but you're nervous, like, you need to just let go of those fears and do what's best for your business. And literally as soon as you do it, you will be thankful that you did.
Awesome. Jamie, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun.
All right, so everybody join me in 2 weeks when I interview somebody else making a difference in the pet industry.